Let's recall what we learned last lesson. We look at linear relationship, which is a straight line. If you are given two coordinates, x1, y1 and x2, y2, how do we find the midpoint? Now, this is the topic we are looking at, which is finding midpoint. Before we look at the procedure in finding midpoint for a linear graph, which is this, let's look at finding the midpoint between some numbers. First, let's look at 4 and 16, 2 and 9, 6 and 13, minus 9 and minus 3. How do we do it? The process is actually quite straightforward. We can use a number line. Let's look at a number line from 0 to 20. The midpoint between 4 and 16 can be found if we actually indicate 4 on that line and then 6 on that line. Find the distance between 4 and 6, half the distance, and we know that the midpoint is 10. Same with 2 and 9 as well. We know where 2 is, 9 is. The distance between 2 and 9, halve it, and we get 5.5. Now, the midpoint between minus 6 and 13. Minus 6, minus 13. Again, we find the distance. This time, take the negative into account, and we know that the midpoint is 3.5. Measuring from here to midpoint, measuring from here to midpoint, 3.5. Between minus 9 and minus 3, again, measuring from here, minus 9, halfway, minus 3, halfway, we get minus 6. Can we do it mathematically? Of course we can. Doing it mathematically, we add the two numbers together and divide it by 2. So 4 plus 16 divided by 2 is 20 divided by 2, we get 10. 2 plus 9 divided by 2 is 11 divided by 2, we get 5.5. Let's look at the number line again. See? That's 10 and 5.5. What about negative number included? Minus 6 plus 13 is actually 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. Minus 9 plus minus 3, which is minus 12 divided by 2, gives us 6. So, let's have a look at the number line. That proves our point. And the general equation for two given numbers, n1 and n2, to find the midpoint, we can use the following equation. The midpoint is n1 plus n2 divided by 2. It doesn't matter whether n1 is positive or negative, or n2 is positive or negative. As long as we use this equation, we can find the midpoint. Look at the linear relationship again. How do we find the midpoint of two given coordinates? It is easier if I show you with some examples. Let's find the midpoint between these two coordinates and then these two coordinates. What we do is let's first plot them on a graph. Now, the first point, 4, 8 is there, and second point, minus 5, minus 3 is here. What we can do is draw a line to find the x distance and draw a line to find the y distance. With that, we can actually work it out by counting the squares. We know there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If there are 9 squares here, divided by 2, that's 4.5. So the midpoint is 4.5. That gives us minus 0.5. Same procedure for y-axis as well, using the number line method. We find the distance, we halve it, we find the midpoint. Same here, find the distance, halve it, we find the midpoint. What about the next one, which is minus 2, minus 9, and 9, 1. Alright, again, I do the same thing. This time, it's a slightly different curve. The slope is going the other direction. But we still use the same process, which is finding the x distance, y distance, halve it, and we worked out that is 3.5 and that is 5. Now, with looking at the distance here, x and y, to find the midpoint, can we actually use the general equation, which is n1 plus n2 divided by 2? Of course, it is possible. Now, let's look for the midpoint. Let's do it mathematically. Let xm be the x coordinate of the midpoint. What we do, using the general equation, n1 plus n2 divided by 2, which means we've got 4 plus minus 5 divided by 2. So 4 plus minus 5 is minus 1, divided by 2 gives us minus 0.5. For y, we've got 8 plus minus 3 divided by 2, which is 8 minus 3 divided by 2 is 5 divided by 2, and we have 2.5. And the midpoint is actually minus 0.5 and 2.5. Exactly the same as we found based on the graphical method. Let's look at the other point. Same process, we just write it slightly differently. Directly using the coordinates way of writing, we can work out x and y. So x is minus 2 plus 9 divided by 2, y is 9 plus 1 divided by 2, which gives us 3.5 and 5. Well, this is the same as the graphical method. Now, let's look at the general formula for how to work out midpoint. So if you are given x1, y1, x2, y2, and we need to find the midpoint xm, ym, what we can do is use this formula here. The coordinates of midpoint xm, ym can be calculated using the following formula. Xm is x1 plus x2 divided by 2. So it's x1 plus x2 divided by 2. Correct? And ym is y1 plus y2 divided by 2, which is y1 plus y2 divided by 2. So basically, you need to know this formula in calculating the midpoint if two coordinates are given. Summary and quick recap. If you got a linear relationship, if you are given 2 points, x1, y1, x2, y2, we can actually find the coordinates of the midpoint xm, ym by using these two formulas. Xm equals to x1 plus x2 divided by 2, and ym is actually y1 plus y2 divided by 2.